What is this garbage you're watching? I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
Hello folks, welcome to another episode of that Gang Stalking Show. My name is Doug, and I'm a TI, and I've been a TI since 2004. I got a sinus infection, my nose is stopped up, so I'm congested, and I'm dried out because I took a lot of Benadryl, or I've been taking, a lot of Benadryl to deal with my allergies. Okay, today's show is about how to get a reward for $1 million. If you have any information into the targeting program whatsoever, and it leads to a conviction and exposes the people who are behind this, you can get $1 million. Let me clue you in on how to do this. Okay, a little background here. David Voight, some of you may know him, and some of you may not even know who David Voight or Voight is. He was a naval officer in the Navy, and he found out about the targeting program. I don't know exactly the full extent of it, but he found out that the Navy was involved somehow or another using electronic devices like with the V2K and whatnot, and that they were targeting people, and that it's a tight-lipped thing that you're sworn to secrecy. And he found out about it, and he was like, man, this ain't right. This ain't right at all. So according to the things that I've read about him, he made himself out to draw attention so he could be targeted, and he was targeted. He came up with this webpage, targetedindividualrewardfund.com. That's it right there, targetedindividualrewardfund.com. And on his webpage, he talks about how you can get this money, and it's like $1 million. But the thing that I don't understand about this webpage is there is no contact me, there's no email, there's nothing at all to tell you, well, I got the information, let me give it to you so I can get this money. So I'm going to throw that out there up front. I'm not going to lead you on. I don't know David Voight, but he was on Facebook at one time, and me and him had a disagreement a couple of maybe 3 years ago. He was talking about how they can read your mind and whatnot, and I was like, I don't believe that. And now I do believe it, but I kept telling him I don't believe it. And so he cut me off. I couldn't see his profile anymore. He wouldn't accept any of my messages. So David, if you're watching this video, man, I'm sorry about that. It was just a disagreement. But I do believe that there is some way to read, if not your mind. I really don't believe that the mind thing is there, but I do believe that that inner voice that we all have, that when we're reading a book or we're looking at our passwords or we're punching in our PIN number for our debit card, there is a voice in our head that will go, my PIN number is 9742. It's the voice that you read with. It's that quiet voice in your head that when you're reading a book, you hear a voice in your head. That's your voice, but it's not coming from the mind. It's originating from the mind, but it ends up down here, and this is what supposedly they're able to pick up on. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. This is really an incomplete web page, and David, if you're watching this, I do have some history in web design. I could make you a killer site. There's some typos in here that I could fix. I don't know what platform you're using, but anyway, let me get into this. Okay, let's go. Okay, my background. My name is David Voight. I'm a former naval officer and a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. I earned a degree in control systems engineering and worked in electronics warfare and nuclear engineering as a surface warfare officer. While I was in the service, I learned of a domestic targeting program that is used on unsuspecting civilians. The program is perpetrated by a small private industry staffed by current and former members of the military, government, law enforcement, and intelligence community using military intelligence weapons and tactics, and it's done for profit. See, that's something I really didn't know before. If that's true, I learned something there. The program is part of an illegal contract, intimidation, stalking, and harassment industry. So evidently this is an industry. The weapons and tactics used on victims are not allowed in domestic civilian applications and may only be used in a narrow set of circumstances in a declared war abroad and only against combatant adversaries. Pretty much we all knew that. We know that this is government top secret stuff and it wasn't designed for us. I've been trying to raise awareness of this illegal program for a number of years, but the way the victims are attacked is so unusual and so sophisticated that it's difficult to maintain credibility when articulating this topic. It really is. This is very, very difficult. Unless you're a TI, I just don't bring it up to people because they look at you like, what you talking about, Willis? You okay, man? Moreover, these types of programs are often perpetrated against people who would have no recourse when attacked, meaning they select people who do not have the experience or resources to fight back. So let's say you're in the government, you know the program, and they want to deal with you. Chances are they may not deal with you using the same stuff that they use against us. Maybe they've got something reserved for those people because those people know what they're up against. There's historical documentation of this exact type of activity, but until recently there hasn't been much current news to point to when discussing this issue. Fortunately, there are now some developing news stories and a few criminal prosecutions that will help support the victims' claims. I'm hoping these new revelations and reward money will allow us to find witnesses who would submit tips to law enforcement on the victim's behalf. Okay, now he's going to talk about the program. The program is concealed by silencing and discrediting the victims using organized, intimidating, stalking, workplace harassment, smear campaigns, and attacks with extraordinarily sophisticated microwave-based psychological warfare weapons. These weapons and tactics are used on targets, their family members, friends, co-workers, and pets in a surreptitious manner. I've had V2K in the past, but not much of it. I had something happen to me in February 2009 where I was working at a restaurant. I just left my career as a nurse and I was working in a restaurant, Pizza Hut, and this song, not a song, a jingle. There's not many jingles nowadays, but back in the day, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you'd hear TV commercials had jingles, and one that was stuck in my head, an annoying jingle, was the old Slinky commercial. Now, if you're 45 years or younger, you probably never heard the Slinky commercial, but it went like this. It's a Slinky, a wonderful, wonderful toy, something to that effect. I get off work, and I'm walking home, and my little cheap Nokia phone, I get a text message, and I read it, and it goes, "It's a Slinky." That blew my freaking mind. I didn't know how it was being done. I still didn't know of gang stalking at this time. I wouldn't learn the term gang stalking until somewhere around 2010, 2011. Well, it looks like I got a little mohawk. That's a painting behind me. I just saw that. But anyway, I didn't learn about it until 2010, 2011. And from 2004 until that time, I was completely in the dark about this, and I didn't know anybody else in the world was experiencing what I was going through. The goal is to isolate the target from help by incriminating some of the family, friends, or co-workers in the crime. The incrimination process is clever and insidious, so few people in the target social network act to protect the target. After that incrimination process happens, almost no one speaks up for fear of repercussions. The weapons have been discussed publicly in the news coverage about the health attacks on the U.S. diplomats in Cuba and China. However, the weapons have incredible capabilities, and the attacks on civilians around the world are more sophisticated and horrific than the news coverage portrayal of the attacks on diplomats. Because if you remember about these attacks, I commented on this, and this was in major news. They heard sounds. If you got in this range of sound, you could hear it. If you got outside of it, you couldn't hear it. But if you heard it, you got nauseated, you felt bad. I actually experienced this one time, and I've got a video on this where I was in the realm of the sound wave that was being projected to me. I couldn't hear it until I got into it, and then when I moved out of it, it stopped, and I'd move into it, and I would hear what sounded like multiple voices behind a waterfall or a streaming brook. It was like voices, but I couldn't really, it was intelligent, and I couldn't understand what they were saying. Also in the news, Lee Remy's show, Scientology in the Aftermath, describes identical organized intimidation stalking tactics perpetrated by contracted private investigators. Now, I've heard about this, and I did watch a few shows on this back in the day, but since I don't have cable anymore, I'm really not clued in on it. But I do know that Scientology is a mind-controlled cult. And if you try to leave, they're going to try to get you back. They are just mind control freaks. I remember the first time I lived in Austin in 1985, I was on Guadalupe Street right across from UT, and there was this small store and it said free IQ test, and I went in there and I signed up for it, and they go, well, after when we're debriefing you about your IQ test and letting you know where your strengths, your weaknesses are, we want to talk to you about Scientology. And I go, this is for Scientology? And they go, yeah. And I go, nah, that's all right. I don't need to have my IQ checked. Even though I didn't know much about Scientology back then, as a 21-year-old kid, I knew it was a cult, and I knew it was dangerous to even screw with these people. I didn't want these people to know anything about me. Screw them and their cult. Former perpetrators have also appeared on the show to speak about the equipment tactics they used. The episode Fair Game, Merchants of Fear and Spies Like Us reveal how private contractors use smear campaigns, surveillance, intimidation, and harassment to discredit targets of the church. Moreover, all episodes of Scientology in the Aftermath are insightful in describing the psychology of these type of perpetrators. Now, that is pure gang stalking tactics based on what everybody in the world now knows about the Stasi police. The Stasi police were really, really good at using gang stalking tactics. And since all that has been disseminated, everybody in the world knows about it, especially criminals. You know, criminals, if there is a new anything to subvert anyone or anything, they'll be the first one on it. And trust me, you guys know this, gang stalking tactics is an awesome way to subvert anyone or anything. There are also thousands of victims all over the world, and they have been asking for help for a very long time. However, they have been unable to organize and break through the discrediting process that conceals the program due to lack of resources. As Remy Show reports, the victims of these types of attacks are blocked from maintaining gainful employment in their field. They are harassed, sabotaged, and goaded to an outburst by complicit perpetrators at their workplace, with the intent of getting the target fired, removed from their job. Moreover, they are made unwell through attacks with weaponry, so their job performance suffers. Like I said, people, many of you that watch this show, you know that I was a former nurse from 1997 to 2008. I had an awesome career as a nurse. I wasn't a straight A student in school, but I had either a 3.2 or 3.4 GPA. And check this out. Outstanding student nurse, 1997. Only one person out of our entire class got this. And it didn't stop in nursing school. When I went on to become a nurse, I got many letters of commendations. I did very well as a nurse. I was able to work in many, many different clinical situations, from med-surg, hospice, rehab, psychiatric, yada, yada, yada. I did very well. I had no problems working, and I could find a job in a heartbeat. But due to the stalking, I had to leave. And it sucked. And it's just like what he said in that line, people are fired from their job or they're run off from their job. They haven't been doing that with my current employer, though there was a campaign of harassment in 2018 that lasted for a month. It wasn't my employer who harassed me. This would happen in the community, and it lasted for 30 days approximately. Without suitable jobs, the victims don't have the financial resources to fight back. This is an outrageous abuse of their rights, and these people must be freed from their abusers. We, the advocates, want to help them achieve the freedom, but we need tips from the public to bring this harassment and torture groups into the criminal justice system. Once that happens, the news media will be able to report their stories with confidence, and the victims will have a pathway to their freedom. Now, with that being said, I can tell you from all the experience that I've had with stalking and from where it has happened, I've seen it happen on every level of society, every rung of society, down from us lowest peons all the way up to people in the court system, doctors, nurses, lawyers, cops. These people, they are embedded everywhere you go. Now, with that said, not all cops are bad. I live in Tyler, Texas, and we have an awesome police force. This is an awesome police force. But I have seen a couple of bad cops, shake me down a time or two and give me a hard time for no reason. And I never, ever had problems with cops. I dealt with some shiesty attorneys and things like that, and a few doctors and a few nurses. But that is not indicative of everybody, being criminally associated with this. I often get the impression that the people who are involved, like with my stalking, it's almost like someone's leaning on them. It's almost like they do it, but some of them are reluctant to do it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey man, I need a favor. That Doug Jones dude right there, I want you to harass him. They're like, oh, come on, man. Look, I got a family to support. I ain't got time for this. That reminds me of something. I was getting V2K harassment in 2008 or 2009. And I was laying in the back of my truck. And across the street was a cop. And he kept his eye on me all night long. And I don't know why. But I was hearing trance music, like techno, like, not like boom, 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 but like something that just you could listen to, like brain entrainment stuff to help you to sleep, that kind of stuff. And then as I'm laying in the back of my truck, I'm locked out of my apartment. I can't get back in my apartment. So I'm laying in my truck trying to figure things out. And I hear someone belt out, I don't have time for this. I don't need to be babysitting this little expletive. This little, whatever. I'm working on my master's degree. I need to be studying right now. I don't need to be babysitting. And then it went back into trance music. I don't know. I don't know what happened on their half. But I was like, I'm half, tripping on the techno trance music. And then that came in. And I was like, wow. It's crazy. All right, where are we at? We're 18 minutes. We're long. This is going to be a long video. In addition to freeing these people from their abusers, the technology has an incredible upside for people with spinal. He's going to talk about what the technology is good for. Okay, here he's going to talk about submitting the tip. Many thousands of people have been working to get this illegal program exposed. Much of that work has been completed behind the scenes, and those advocates are waiting for more information about the program to come into public light, to publish stories, or to indict. For example, there are several people who have tried to publish an article similar to Ronan Farrow's article that listed the resources tab. Reporter David Card tried in 2001, and reporter Ken Aluta tried in 2002. However, Farrow's article did not publish until 2017. Let me see, who's this Farrow guy? You need to get a pen and piece of paper right now. We need to look this guy up because he's got an article that has been published about this. Ron Farrow. No, it's not Ron, it's Ronan, Ronin, Farrow. Ronan Farrow. I don't know what the article is, but look him up on Google. I know I'm going to be looking him up. I don't have time right now, but Ronan Farrow. Okay, now that right there, I have talked with people like Ella Free. I briefly did I did editing graphics for her for a little bit, and I do know that she knows people, and there are people out there with money. She told me about someone who donated $10,000 to help get her billboards out. She's doing these billboards for targeted individuals. There are people right now that we don't even know of, we're unaware of, who are behind the scenes, who are ready to mobilize and to come to our aid, but they're staying out of the limelight so they don't get hit. And that's good. So don't be thinking that we're all in this alone and there's nobody behind the scenes who cares about us. There is a group of individuals out there who cares deeply about us, who knows what we're going through, and they've got the money. They've got the money to back us up. So take that to heart. I try to stick to documented facts when discussing the topic and the sources in the resource guide. He's got a resource tab here. Full explanation of this crime. However, in the interest of freeing these people in an expeditious manner, you should know that this effort will likely yield more facts about the Jim Matt murder of Kendrick Johnson. I don't know who Kendrick Johnson is. You want to write this down? Kendrick Johnson, Jim Matt murder, like laying on a gym mat to wrestle. You can go to the resource tab to read that. If your tip leads to the arrest and conviction of the perpetrators who subsequently reveal information about the electromagnetic attacks, you will likely qualify for the reward. All that is needed to solve this crime is for the credibility of the victim's testimony to be supported. Right there, liquid break. My mouth is so dry. Many of the victims know their attackers. I can promise you 100%, no shred of doubt, I know who's behind mine. Mine started after X, Y, and Z. My harasser has dropped hints and clues on purpose to let me know, hey buddy, it's me. You know who I am. I know you know who I am. That's why I'm calling myself Walmart. So I know who's doing it. I've got a ton of circumstantial evidence. And I've talked to people that knows this guy and they're like, yeah, he is doing it. Also, many license plates of people who have harassed me, driving particular vehicles that are associated with this guy who he runs around with. All these license plates leads back to him. So many of the victims know their attackers, and many of the witnesses and perpetrators in these cases know about the weapons. When they do talk, it will be sufficient proof to publish further articles and indict perpetrators, and it would be an admission that these weapons exist and are deployed in the United States. From there, the victims could receive medical treatment the same way the U.S. diplomats have received medical treatment. Here's something. As written above, I'm a former Naval Officer and Naval Academy graduate. When I learned that this military capability was being used in private, for-profit harassment campaigns, I tried to figure out a legal way to assess the situation. On one hand, this technology is classified. On the other hand, it is being used illegally by wealthy individuals, corporations, and political interests to discredit and torture civilians. This domestic targeting program is not something an individual member of the military could address because only certain people to work with the tactics and technology, and if you're not part of those groups, you don't ask about it. And if you're a part of these groups, you are sworn to secrecy. Moreover, you can't really write an internal complaint because you would need specific cases of abuse to report, and the program is covert, so the government has an official policy to deny exist. Duh! So I figured the only legal way to stop the crime would to get myself targeted by one of these groups that had illegal access to these tactics and technology. I tried to guess the psychological profile of who might have access, came up with some real life guesses, and then wrote creative copy on the individual websites or in comment sections of news articles about these people organizations. I'm really not sure what he's saying there. I attempted to write that copy and make a perpetrator come after me with this program, though at the same time endear myself to those who viewed the copy who might be bystanders, sympathetic to the victims, which is a difficult writing task to attempt in comment section. I don't know what he means by copy. Two of my guesses are right, the Church of Scientology and Harvey Weinstein. And there are probably more correct guesses, but I'll save those guesses for a blog post. To reiterate the resource tabs, he's going back in the resource. This is basically it. He did shine a little bit of light on this as far as what I've known. My concern, not concern, but my question has always been this. The person who is doing my targeting, he's not former military, and aside for a few family members, he has nothing to do with the military. But as I've been told over and over and over and over and over, and heard it millions and millions of times, you don't want to mess with Walmart. Walmart's not his name. That's what he goes by. But the Wall means something like William, and the Mark means something like Mays. It's a pseudonym. It's a moniker. It's a clever disguise to let you know, hey, buddy, it's me. Remember me? Remember me? Yeah, it's me. The thing that I've always had a problem with understanding is, how does he get in contact with someone that has the capability to access these type of devices like V2K, RNM? How does that happen? But then again, I've heard this for the past, almost 20 years. He knows a lot of people. When my targeting campaign in 2018 was going on, I went to a restaurant to pick up some food. I went to the Coke machine, and by the Coke machine, I was getting the drink to go with my order to deliver. There stood like a 6-foot-plus deputy sheriff from Smith County, Texas, wearing dark glasses, and my mind was not even on gang stalking, targeting, or anything. My mind was, I got to get this order and get it delivered. And as I'm getting my drink filled, he blurts out, he knows a lot of people. I go, it didn't register that I've heard that term about 1,000 times already. I've heard it so many times. He knows a lot of people. And then when I get in my car, I'm like, did that cop just, harass me? This didn't happen in the middle of my campaign. This was the pre-campaign. This was like, I've noticed almost every time a campaign happens, it doesn't happen like hitting a wall at 60 miles an hour. Boom, the campaign's beginning. It starts off with this little thing, something said here, something done there, things like that. And that's what this was. This was pre-campaign, I guess, conditioning, or a pre-campaign warning that, hey, we're coming in, we're coming to get you. So, but like I said, I don't understand how that works. But after reading Dr. John Hall's book, satellite terrorism in America, the groups that was targeting his former fiance and him, some people in this private investigative group in San Antonio were former FBI agents. And not all FBI has this capability, but there is an aspect of FBI, like in the core, one particular unit, I wouldn't know what you would call it, but like the electronic unit or something like that, they do have an aspect of the FBI that I'm sure has R&M capabilities, remote neural monitoring, and the V2K, and probably a lot of other top secret devices. But if you're, a standard grunt, you just came in an FBI, you're probably not going to hear anything about it. But people like that who do have access to it use that equipment. And those people who were now working in the private sector as a private investigative firm, it's known they're former FBI by doing a background check on them, by checking their license plates. Oh, this vehicle's John Doe owes this vehicle. Well, let's see who John Doe is. John Doe spent 40 years in the FBI, and now John Doe works for XYZ PI company in San Antonio. Ding, 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 ding. That's where they're getting access from this. So let's say this guy who's been harassing me for the past 16 years, he knows a connection that has a connection that could get him to someone. Hey man, I need a favor. I got this guy I'm harassing. I'm trying to get him to commit suicide. Can we get some access time to this V2K R&M thing? Yeah. We'll let you know when we can, schedule a block. That's pretty much how I think this thing works. But I don't know. Don't quote me. That's just what I'm thinking from my experience with it. But anyway, that's going to just about do it for this. I really wanted to cover this. I want to say this, David Voight, if you're watching this video, man, please don't hate on me. But I'm just saying, dude, this is a pretty good article here you wrote, but you failed to mention how to get in contact with you. There's no email address. There's no phone number. There's no physical address. I mean, I know that I can contact Matthew and Ella from her Ella Free broadcast and probably get in contact with her to find out about this. But to tell you the truth, David, this webpage is just not enough information. It's just really not enough information for anybody to do anything to get the money. So I'm like, why publish a webpage when we can't contact you? And at the bottom of the webpage, it's got some links. East German Stasi, The Lives of Others, which is a good movie. I recommend all targets should watch. It's about the secret German Stasi police. I did a program on that. Maybe only a couple hundred people watched it. And I don't understand why. When I tell you guys this is a good movie, this is gang stalking movie, you don't watch my videos. That's a good movie. Read about Harvey Weinstein.